Yo, welcome. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Veil, an unusual podcast. I am the Blue Fire, Jay Drizzy, and along with me is the Black Sun Shaman. Welcome to another episode. This is episode 8, season 2. Keeping it rolling, keeping it moving, the Sunday sermon. We keep it grooving. Had to drop a little line. Every now and again, I like to drop a rhyme, but I'm not here for that. Bring it right back. Yeah. Freestyle. Sunday sermon. Thanks for joining us. How's it going, bro?
Sunday sermon, Sunday burning. You know what I mean? Having a good old day. How you doing, brother?
I won't complain, brother. I won't complain. Another day, another holla.
Well, to the audience that's coming in the room, I just want to say peace and perfect resonance with your highest good in your right now moments.
Absolutely. Indeed. So, what we got for him today, man?
Yes. I mean, you know it's Sunday, so we get to freestyle. I just wanted to only thing I want to make sure that we cover today is this frequency warfare, man. And the reason I want to cover it and make sure that we touch bases with it today is because I've been feeling this heat that I can't explain, brother. It don't have nothing to do with my temperature. It don't have nothing to do with nothing. You know what I mean? It don't be the surface of my skin. It doesn't have, when I check my temperature, there's nothing wrong. You know what I mean? For a minute, I thought I was allergic to my clothes. I started wondering if I was allergic to the fabrics on my clothes, but I don't know where that heat was coming from. You know what I mean? So I wanted to make sure that I cover this today just because of that. You know what I mean?
So from what I gather, it's seeing something that looks like the sun in the position where we might normally look for the sun, but there's like a ring around it, almost like a transparent but off-white shiny rim around at times, and it almost looks like something that is being projected or shown through a lens, or how would you describe it?
I mean, it looks like a ring, like a portal, like a ring of fire. That would be my best way of it. Sometimes when I'm looking at it, it has I don't know what to say, like a
halo.
Yeah, like
a halo effect.
Mm-hmm.
Or I like the iris, the rim around the
the
lens of the eye.
Or like the gateway at Hart Plaza. Except not broken.
Ooh, careful. Okay. Gotcha. All right. So yeah, man. Real interesting. I noticed a couple years ago during these months, what they call, spring to summer, the transitional months or weeks, like a slow burn. It's like the heat is direct but indirect. There's almost like a cooling effect, but at the same time, below the surface of the skin, it feels like something's gradually heating up.
Yes, it does. And then I just want to say, in light of this conversation, when I was in school, they told me that an eclipse was only supposed to happen once every 21 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they taught me in school. I remember clearly because I was interested in science. That's what they taught me. Eclipse only happens every 21 years, so I approximated that I would get to see 3 to 4 in my lifetime. But we had one last year and the year before and the 2 years before that, if I'm not mistaken, which is very strange because that's definitely not every 21 years.
It isn't. It definitely isn't. I mean, and we were always told that they're making new discoveries every day. I guess that's a more positive way of approaching the topic than rather than saying they have no clue what the f is going on. Um,
Right, right, right.
and ever since the priesthood was separated from the science, there's been a constant effort to cause further division between the two. Which hopefully will lead us into the discussion of the reincarnated estates, or at least the estates and then the reincarnated estates. But the
Or,
connection, go ahead.
or the recapturing of our original culture as opposed to religion. Now, that you said marrying of science and religion. The first step, which they call a revelation or initiation, to marrying science and religion is when you get into esoteric philosophy.
Yeah, familiar,
Hmm.
very familiar.
They'll people like Rudolf Steiner and other Christian theosophists, or I hope I said that right, theosophists.
Hmm. Yeah, Theosophist. Yes.
They take scriptorial representations and give the scientific equivalent to them. And then if I say that, that sounds like I'm giving credit to them. But in alignment with the reincarnated estate, all of their information that they acquired as far as spirituality or science, whichever you prefer to use, you know what I mean? They got all of that information from pre-existing cultures that they sent Jesuit, allegedly, they sent Jesuit military operations into, that acquired that information. Uh-oh.
Right. Well,
Excuse me. That acquired that information from older cultures than they are. So when they're giving you these esoteric breakdowns and they're comparing what religion has to science, know that they weren't the first to have done that. That was already done in the culture that they stole it from. They're just giving it back to you under the guise of secret societal esoteric information.
indeed. I mean, we say stole, right? But I've been thinking about something lately.
Hmm.
Is it stolen culture, or is it the continuation of the culture in a bastardized form? Because everything has a parent. If it doesn't have a parent or a progenitor, let me be careful, then it is a bastard. And this is a society that has been built upon amalgamating,
Bastardization.
conglomerating, or bastardizing philosophies, ideologies, traditions, and hell, even religion.
People, people, don't forget people.
Well,
Bastardizing people.
yeah, I said, well, they've never been concerned about people except for how well they can colonize them,
Hmm.
like all other zoological creatures. You know what I mean? So like that's part of the when you brought up the Jesuit order, for example, that's the military order of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They
So
they servants of the trust God,
of the God trust.
of the God trust.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying it in reverse wording.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So when you say one, you're saying the other, right?
Right.
Um. So part of this ties into a great deception that is a self-fulfilling prophecy that comes through in certain script, including the script of the Codex. No, excuse me, the Novum Testamentum. So the Novum Testamentum, if you're not familiar, comes from Novum Instrumentum, which was written by a man named Desiderius Erasmus. It was his interpretation or transliteration of um, the gospel and other texts that were attributed to a new covenant, so to speak. Um, so all of these things are tied into contracts, agreements, traditions that are connected to groups of people through their contracts with otherworldly beings or representatives of otherworldly beings that are passed down throughout their bloodlines. Um,
Creating a new world order.
well, see, let's dig into that too. See, when we get colloquial in our speech, which is fine most of the time, right? But as the old saying goes, the devil is in the details. So the details fact is that in the proper vernacular, it's a new secular order of the ages.
Mm.
So it's the end of a set of ages that have passed or transpired and the introduction of a new order of a new set of ages. And then they say what? In God, we trust. We set up a trust. And the people's belief in God that we have bound them to through religion will give us all the trust we need energetically to produce a new world. The image of a new world more so than an actual new world, a projection of a world to come or worlds to come after.
Their perception would, in fact, be based on the creative lessons that are made available through ancient culture. So if they're saying, let's create a new world order, and then speaking a Kabbalah's living language as a secret between them, then when they program you through television and the colors on television and the sounds that you hear and the frequency that's being played in the overall background, they're playing a game with you that that in turn makes you a slave to their vision.
Correct. And also a carrier of the data that is necessary to spread in order to continue the colonization process. So you become
Self-government.
your own oppressor as opposed to self-governing.
Mm-hmm.
You oppose and oppress those who look, sound, live by you, and therefore they don't have to put any more effort other than the plan and the strategy into motion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of things that we've been believing as prophecy are predictive programming.
Woo, he said it. He said it. Y'all need to snip it. That what? What you just say, sir?
Yeah, it's predictive programming. We see, here's the thing, like we have been taught to connotate things outside of their proper light. We say in out of context, but outside of their proper light, right? So in one breath we'll say, well, he's a prophet of God. A prophet of God. Okay. I'll get back to that. I'm gonna put a pin in that. Then another will say, well, keep telling that baby he's just gonna be just like his daddy, and he's gonna turn out exactly that way. Because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
But what is self-fulfilling? And what makes one a prophet of God? Is not God self-fulfilling? The scriptures in the Bible at least say, not one jot or tittle of my word will fall to the ground or be taken in vain. Not one transgression or disobedience will be overlooked. Right?
And and the esoteric preachers say it like this. They say, "As a man thinketh."
Right, right. But my point was more so like the God in you, right? The force
Mhm.
in you is constantly fulfilling its promise to itself. But when you go outside of that self promise into interpreting others' words, whether they be intended for positive or negative purpose, you now take that into the self. And that becomes a part of the projection of
Yes.
your own reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong. It just
No.
is that way.
This would be the equivalent from a scientific perspective, if you want to take it there, of um is collective consciousness creates reality. It would be tipping oh goodness, critical mass. It would be the when it would be when we as a collective started to believe something strong enough, then it'll be so. And I mean, this can be proven very easily. Land masses go through different names based on what the people are willing to accept. One day it could
Correct.
one day it can be Tamaray, and then the next day it could be America, if you collectively agree that it's so.
Yeah. The interesting thing is how the powers that be seem to circumvent that process on the surface. It's like somehow they get past the surface conversation and it gets to the second point of reckoning before there's a conversation. Like, for example, how did Jesse Jackson and two other so called black leaders, one of which is a card carrying American Indian who started SNCC or co founded SNCC and the Rainbow Coalition, you know, what's up with that, bro? Like, you got one person calling the shots for everybody else, and they don't even realize who made the suggestion, who brought it before other figureheads, and I use that word very strongly, figureheads, before the next thing you know, you're influenced into calling yourself a landmass combined with a color or a statement or what's not statement, a title of citizenry, which means slave in its original context.
If
When
if
you come from nations, we say tribal nations, but you come from nations of families.
let's say you did that, Jay. Let's say you called yourself black. Let's say you called yourself an association to America instead of Tamaray, right? What you lose then? What do you stand to lose by doing that?
Your status. And by status, I mean your state of being. Your state of being is intact from birth. There's a birth order, right? There's a birth name that is issued
Mm-hmm.
by
Birth.
the progenitors or the grandfathers and mothers, right? In a culture, when you have a culture, that's how those things are done. When you're a politically dominated, sanitized word, citizen or slave, those things are done through a political process that circumvents the natural and spiritual order of the divine right to exist.
So then you're under rules. So you put down your sovereign mentality and pick up the rules, regulations, and structurings of your government, your church, or your school.
Whatever organization, whatever dead body or dead entity that is claiming to have the ability, authority, or right to speak over your matters.
Well, if you don't have somebody speaking for you, that means you got to speak for yourself.
That's correct. Or you appoint someone to speak on your behalf, but only as you give them utterance or intent to speak.
So wouldn't you hire a liar? I mean, a lawyer to do that?
Well, see, the problem with that, right? Okay. And I used the word just a moment ago. So let me put this in proper light. You're paying someone to lie from the giddy up. You're paying them to represent you. You're either present or you are not present. So if they are representing you, there's a fraud by implication already being committed, and therefore a lowering of status or standing to speak. You know, when people say you don't even have a leg to stand on, that's legal reference. You can't legally defend yourself. You need to pay a liar or an attorney at law or a barrister, right?
So is this why public servants make statements that you have to sign?
Correct.
Okay.
Because you have to acquiesce. You have to acquiesce your rights in order to have the benefit of representation not being fraud. But it in fact still is, because you're either present or you're not.
So you either put your big boy, you know what I mean, stand on your square 10 toes down for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, you could always pay for legal advice and be your own attorney. In fact, constitutionally, you still have that right, but then you'd have to be a assigned party to the Constitution. And most people aren't even aware what their constitutional rights are in the first place, because they're not even aware of the origin. Okay, most of us have heard of John Locke. John Locke started a document, and he talks of a concept of life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. But Thomas Jefferson said, I like that, John. I'm going to change up one part of that. We don't want to guarantee them even the pursuit of property. Because, mind you, there was laws that were passed that were not constitutional, if you think about it, that would state that certain people couldn't own property. Now, ironically, those people inherited land that they were taught they belonged to, as opposed to the land belonging to them. And so then their pretend friends, their foes that posed as allies said, well, we got you, man. Here's how we'll remedy the problem with overpopulation. We'll change your status. We'll assume your position as landholders of a trust. And as soon as you're civilized enough to understand all this, by which we'll make the determination, don't worry about it, then we'll give it back to you. But thank you for trusting us to hold the land that will purport to the rest of the world belongs to us by ownership.
Whoa. Is this simultaneously while the church is implementing God?
God owns the trust. What do you mean? God's the trustee. He's the grantor. Right? You see how that works? And then you set up a state that has ecclesiastical law as its principles. And then you'll convince the people that there's a
So you can
separation.
get them to critical mass, like the church.
Yeah, mass, right.
So you can get them to critical mass so you can change reality.
Their perception
of reality. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
So those governmental positions and the clergy positions should have been progressing simultaneously next to each other.
They were.
Oh.
I mean, after all, what is an officer? What is a person that holds office other than a minister? So just because you change the spelling to administrator, but it has the same exact contextual meaning, a minister, then how are we not holding church? How are we not in church in the House of Representatives? It says it's an ecclesia, a general assembly, a mass.
Mm. Mm.
Right. So, yeah, you just control the perception. I remember I've shared this time and time again in conversation with you, but shout out to my former teacher and pastor at one time, Bishop Norman L. Wagner. He said, perception is stronger than truth or fact in the mind of the perceiver. You can never change a man's mind until you, in fact, can help change his perception.
Even when you encounter a person and you said something that they don't understand, you find yourself restructuring what you said in a way that they can understand it.
If you are, in fact, seeking to be understood, or should I say, comprehended, because oftentimes it's the other way around that we just stated. You want to be
Legalese.
understood, meaning you want them to stand under you, because if you have superior standing, then what you say holds as law, right?
And this would be the reason for the mincing of words called legalese. This would be the reason
Mm-hmm.
that they use terminology that doesn't directly and clearly state what is being acted upon or said directly. Instead, it I don't know, gives them another perspective other than that reality.
Yes. Yes. So you said another word, perspective. Perspective and perception are still varying degrees of sight or a way of seeing things, right? So if I can get you to share your perspective, that would be a good way to draw enough data from you to determine what strategy to employ to change your perception. Right? Then there's a paradigm, which is how your mind has been set. We use the word hardwired. My brain is hardwired to see things as blah, 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 and to do this, that, and that. Wow, you just gave me the whole hack code. Thank you. So now I know if I can get you to help me rewire your brain, I can help change your perception and also your perspective.
So you
And
can
all while shifting your paradigm, your mindset.
so you do this through well, let me not say it like that. I heard that churches had or plantations had churches, and I heard that Latin was reserved for the clergy.
Yeah, it's the language of liturgy, liturgical language.
So they would be having a conversation in front of someone encoded that would go right over their head.
And then remember the order of the church. You had your clergy, you had your board, and really they didn't have boards until after, you could say, plantation life. But you had whatever organizational structure underneath the clergy that was a part of the ministerial alliances or guild is another word they use, a guild, right? All these words deal with a lodge because they weren't allowed in the lodge. They were given to church. And see, that same degree system of knowledge, although it's not on the same level, is set up in the very similar, if not the same order, structurally, right? It's set up. So, like,
So
okay, in a lodge, you have what, like, worshipful master, grand worshipful master, chief worshipful potentate. These big, holy, ornate titles, they just sound fancy and above board, right? So you have bishop, which is overseer, and then you have pastor, which is shepherd, leader of a flock, right? Then you have under shepherds in some ministries. Then you have the ministerial staff. You have the evangelical team. You have the praise dance and worship ministry or team. You have the what do you call it? The youth ministry alliance. You have the usher board, the trustee board, the mothers guild, the nurses association, all within one church. And when you
so
go ahead, I'm sorry.
so no. With that perspective, then I would like to further research for discovery if the Jesuit was also procuring information about how tribal original people were governing themselves, and if the government of the tribal establishment was then mimicked in the governing body that we see today. Because you're using words like chief, you're using words that I hear in relation to Native American or indigenous American, whatever you want to call it, people, but you're using it in relation to clergy, and
Mm.
then I start to hear it in relation to the Council of Chiefs, and then I start looking at people being seated in these long tables and remembering longhouse councils and everything like that, and it's starting to look like our ancient culture is being mimicked in the church establishment and the government establishment.
And I get you. I see where you're coming from with that. I don't disagree with your logic. I simply would adapt slightly different wording, and that's just me personally. Not saying you need to,
Mhm.
but for better understanding for me or understanding, it's a continuation and a bastardization. It is not a true borrowing. It is not a true. It's like continuing on as if business as usual is taking place in the stead of the people who should be there.
Yes, yes, yes. And then for the reason, as you said that, my mind gained a little bit of clarity for the reason that they are small in number. So they have to be big in perception.
They say the greatest lie that was ever told was that there is no devil, right? But I would tell you the greatest lie that was ever told is that so-called African Americans only make up 13 to 17% of the US population. Okay. And that has to do with status, right? If you really use your noggin, and I'm gonna say this once, and I hope I don't have to address it again, but if I ever do, I will. Um,
I'm
there's
sure.
no way you can convince me that people who live on top of each other in housing tenements, projects, neighborhoods, ghettos, and the like, places that were reserved for them, by the way, because they made up most of the populations of these major cities
Can we
along
define
the
project
waterways.
at some point today? Let
What's
me
that?
see it. Can we define project at some point today?
Yeah,
The word project.
yeah.
Okay.
It'd be interesting because they're just reservations in urban environments, right? But I digress for a moment, just to get you to understand that if you have people avoiding signing up for census, which rightfully so, because if religious history serves me correctly, Every time a census was taken in a holy book, there was always a dark-skinned group of people at the brunt of that census being hunted down for their firstborn to be eliminated.
And dare
Just
you not say
say
that that's some crazy mess, because I
it.
remember their story talking about they were hunting down the firstborn males, and
Yeah.
so they would be able to locate them in where they were in accordance with a census. And then in light of today's current conscious community perception, they say that the star seeds are to a level or a degree hunted, gang stalked, watched. You know what I mean?
So
Uh,
that would be motivation, right? To change your racial classification on a document, would it not?
yeah.
If you decided to answer that door because your neighborhood needs funding, and that's the only way the federal government will consider funding a project in your neighborhood. And yes, I use that word again, but yes, in a different light. So that funding would have to come through registering as something. So if they don't reach you, I, being a former employee, I won't say which branch, Central, but yeah, when we knocked the doors and we sat on residences in our cars, like when police say they sitting on a residence, we sat and watched. We surveilled people's neighborhoods to wait to see if they ever came home, and they did, and they still didn't answer. So what they told you to do, the same thing that Dane Calloway and certain others, shout out to Dane Calloway, told you to do, they did, the enumerators were told to do, make your best guess based upon your assumption, which means your prejudice. So, for example, let's say I was taking a census in like a city like somewhere in South Central Ohio, a very major city, and there's a large East African population in that area that identify themselves as Somali. When I talked to the Somalis that would answer, they said they're Somali, not East African, not black. We are Somali from Somaliland. Okay, brother. Okay, sister. Cool. Awesome. And how many children do you have in the household? And okay, now the others, they told us when I called into the leader, can't get a hold of them, but I know that they're Somali. They look just like the people next door. They're probably relatives. In fact, I know they are because I heard the conversation and I know a few words. But what do you want me to do?
Wait,
Just
wait,
put down, just put down African American.
wait. But if they
Just
did,
put down African American or black.
Brother Jay, if they did that to the Native Americans, that they took off the list, like the Blackfoot,
No,
Black.
no. American Indian. Native American was invented in 1972. The only
So
other native,
wait.
only Native American known before that was in the late 1800s as the Know Nothing Party. Shout out to
Yes,
Dane Calloway.
yes.
I mean, it's in the history book, but shout out to him for reviving that information for those of us who forgot or haven't, even been aware. Thank you.
Indeed. So
But that was the Know Nothings who was a part of an anti-Masonic movement because there was a Masonic party and an anti-Masonic party.
whoa. There was
Yeah. It wasn't just Whigs and Whigamores. And notice that term, Whigamores, First Continental Congress, Whigs and
in
Whigamores,
black robes
right, with black
for
wigs on, or white
foreigners,
wigs sometimes.
for foreigners.
All of them are foreigners. What? That was the agreement. That allowed them to do business. Their business was government, mind control. Are we shocked that MK Ultra exists now? Are we shocked with the remote viewing? This was the agreement.
So so
Come
so
here and do
so
your
so
business, and we'll
so
let you use the land. Use the
you
land.
you said remote viewing. I even want to address that they stole that
Of
too.
course. A Vision Quest. I'm not going to suggest any substances, but allegedly there's peyote involved
and
and some
then
mushrooms, and
went to
but
the extent to make it illegal at a substance that they would put you in jail for in the courts with the black robe people.
notice they call them Schedule 3 narcotics or opioids. Schedule 1, Schedule 2. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember what I said a calendar was? It's a schedule of fees.
Ooh.
It is not a cycle of months, moons, and
And then
suns processions.
from the shaman's perspective, some of these trees and mycelium networks are older than humanity right now as it is. You understand what I'm saying? So if they come in season, Jay, that's major.
You know
If
what?
they come in season and you supposed to tap into them during the season that they in, but you got another schedule or you got another calendar appointment to keep, then you miss your natural, you not in natural position no more. You thrown out of natural position and put on a.
So, since you took it there, you have something to present, right? That deals with what happens when you're out of that alignment, when you're out of that positioning and timing, what they've, implemented,
Yes.
the effects of what they. Okay, you want me to pull that up, or you got it to pull up?
Can you pull it up, please? Because I couldn't get it. There, boom, boom. So, what that is that's a radiation exposure list, and that radiated exposure list is AI 19 19er. I'm looking at the thyroid gland and the problems that it may produce, the lung inflammation that it may produce, the vomiting, nausea, headaches, and fevers that are the first onset and symptoms of radiation. And just there's a whole list here. If you look at this thing and maybe zoom in on it and look, and you can look at the time frames of affecting. And this just brings me back to the beginning of the video when we said there's a heat you feel and you don't know where the hell it's coming from. You'll sit there and you'll check your temperature and feel your skin, but it ain't no heat there, but the heat coming from somewhere else, and you don't know where it's coming from. People find themselves sleep in the bed or developing headaches out of nowhere, not to equilibrate these two to each other. You know what I'm saying? At all. You know what I'm saying? I'm just paying attention to what they're saying. And I'm like, my goodness, this list has a lot to do with a lot of the struggles that people have been facing since the unfoldment and heightening of coverage areas and the more extensive network that they have for information. As it's been increasing, so have these problems in us, and they've been given new names. They've been listed as new discoveries. You know what I'm saying? As new strands. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
stuff like that. You know what I mean? And you really, and then even the effects of DNA damage you can see listed at the bottom there, that the unraveling of DNA or the destructive qualities of DNA can come from radiation exposure. And you know what I mean? Which is an interesting note. You know what I'm saying? Not to say that they have anything to do with each other, just, pointing out that they're similar and it's something, to look at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah. So I was looking up. When we were talking earlier, I looked up direct energy weapons, their different appearances, or what's the word? Their different forms and what they cause, or what you will notice. So when I looked up under that, I found an active denial system. This is an interesting name. Active denial system is a millimeter wave source that heats the water in a human target's skin and thus causes incapacitating pain. It was developed by the U.S. Air Force Research Laboratory and Raytheon for riot control duty. Now, some of you may or may not have been subscribed to a previous channel of mine or seen other videos on the Schwebel room. channel on YouTube that I'm affiliated with as well. Shout out 3PMD, Tank, Ed, Miss Kiki. Uh,
Greetings, everybody. Peace,
yeah,
peace.
yeah. Shout out to you all. But yeah, man, Old Man Ally or Tank, he been very instrumental in some of the research that I've come across. But prior to some of the things he put me on to, I had mentioned working for a direct action outfit, as some might call them, protester group. And when I was working for them as an organizer, I learned a lot. And one thing I was told by one of my supervisors when working in that particular arena as a direct action organizer, a lead organizer. So I would set up flash mob scenarios and public discourse, disagreement, or even protest of certain speakers and candidates for certain positions, right, running for office. But the thing was, I was told if you ever lead a group into a intersection in the road where there's a stoplight, look up and see the cameras. I said, okay. Then I was told those aren't cameras. I said, oh. I said, yeah, I noticed there's coils on those things. They look like coils, like little, almost like spiral
Dijed pillars.
tracks. Yeah, like little tiny, yeah, little.
Dijed pillars.
They look like little mini towers inside of a rubber pack.
Mm-hmm.
He said, yeah, very observant. He said those produce millimeter and nanometer wave frequency technology. And I said, cell phone? He said, yeah, cellular radio frequency waves. So he said, when they come towards you and you're coming towards them and everything's heated, he said, and then they put up their riot shields like this. He said, and then they stop in their tracks and then they start stepping back slowly. He said, back your group of protesters up. I said, why? They about to gas us? He said, worse. I said, oh, they're going to shoot us? He said, worse. I said, what's worse than getting shot? He said, well, see, sometimes they have rubber bullets, right? So they hurt real bad. They can cause an eye to go out. They can maim you. They can hurt you, but they don't kill you, right? I said, right. He said, no, this is worse. He said, what you'll notice if you stay in that intersection and don't retreat like they retreated is those millimeter wave frequency and nanometer wave frequency transmitters are going to shoot radiation at a level that's undetectable into the entire crowd. And the more people you have gathered, the stronger the field of frequency and energy is. And he said some people will start vomiting violently immediately, like projectiles. He said some people will fall on their knees, doubled over in stomach pain. He said others will have immense, tremendous headaches with ringing ears. So, but no one will have the same symptoms. No group of people will have exactly the same symptom. They'll be duplicate, right? And I don't know if that's blood type based. I don't know if that's ethnicity based. Who knows how far they've discovered what they can do with what they've got, but they got it. And it don't make no sense. Some of the violence we see on TV because they got it. It doesn't make sense that they wouldn't put that to use to de-escalate every major potential violent situation. But I digress. I'm not trying to become a target any further than I already have. But I'm just saying, truth is truth, and reason is reason. And if you want to change a man's mind, you have to change his perception. So your perception might have been that these people have no business out there and they're tearing up property, but they have technology that could more than effectively protect the property if that was the real concern. Uh-oh, your audio. What happened? You might have touched it.
I always wonder to myself, what in the world is the reason for the energetic capability of towers, just as an engineer standpoint. Not to say that I'm a engineer by any degree standard, but just as a person who is fascinated, interested, and studies engineering a little bit. I look at these towers, Jay, and it doesn't make any sense that they have the potential electrical output that they do. It's not necessary. Okay, so let me give you a for instance. If I ran a 220 test line to my laptop, it's going to fry it because it's too much electricity going into the circuitry. Is going to fry it. You know what I mean? So I have to have the regular plug in that's sufficient to make my laptop work. Well, from my engineering standpoint, the energetic potential of these towers way is way over what they need in order to sustain the coverage area in which they're trying to get covered by these particular network systems. It's like having a cell phone and saying that you need $100,000 generator to run the cell phone. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. You can just run the cell phone on a little one panel solar panel. You can hook your cell phone up and run the power necessary. But no, they say no, that's not going to be enough. We need 7 football fields of solar panels to charge your cell phone. But I digress.
Are you able to read this or see it rather? Make
Yes,
it out.
direct energy weapon, high powered microwaves, direct energy weapon DEWS are defined as electromagnetic systems capable of converting chemical or electrical energy to radiate energy and focus it on a target, resulting in physical damage that degrades, neutralizes, defeats, or destroys the adversary capability. Navy, which pertain to Jesuit as well in some of my past studies. Navy DEWs include systems that use high energy lasers that
Hell.
emit hell, hell, that emit photons of high powered microwaves, HPMs, that release
Radio frequency waves.
radio frequency waves. The U.S. Navy uses DEWs for power projection and integrated defense missions. The ability to focus the radiated energy reliably and repeatedly at range with precision and controllable effort while
Effect.
producing controllable effect while producing measured physical damage or mission defeat is measured of DEW system effectiveness. Controversially, capabilities to increase the resilience or what is that? Surveyability
It
of
says conversely, capabilities to increase the resilience or survivability of platforms or sailors from DEW threats are part of the Counter Directed Energy Weapons Program, CDU. Um, Thank you for reading that. But yes, this is the real deal, y'all. It's not if, it's how and when and how long.
have yeah.
I mean, was Katrina really about the levees breaking? I mean, think about this, y'all. You got wave pools at amusement parks that use electromagnetic frequency devices on the floor of an artificial pool that create small tidal waves. If you increase that in size, and the Army Corps of Engineers, for example, was just, attaching that to the ocean floor on a grand scale, I mean, it really doesn't take much.
I read an article about methane gas that's collected at the bottom of the sea, and
Yeah.
they were also I heard about the potential capability for them to also use that to create tidal waves.
Mm-hmm.
And then, my crazy self, no pertinence to each other, and this is speculative thinking. You know what I mean? This is a free thinker being a free thinker. It reminded me of what happened with the wave that hit that made those nuclear plants go down in China and the issues that they were having right before then. And then it also made me put me in remembrance of the fact that just recently everybody started to go on this craze to go to Taiwan. And everybody's like, if things in America aren't looking that good, then Taiwan is a good place to go for very inexpensive to live a very good life. But then right after that, they also experienced a deep water earthquake that caused a tidal wave that caused a disinterest in people leaving like they were. I mean, not to say that any of that's related to each other. Again, you know what I'm saying? It's just an interesting line of thinking with the conversation about their capability to use electromagnetic frequency and nature to affect what we would call a natural disaster, but may not necessarily be natural. May have been something else.
Oh, I was just, giving some examples while you were explaining it. Like,
Uh-huh.
um, you know, uh, what's understood doesn't really have to be explained.
Yeah,
And of course, we suggest you do your own research, of course, always.
always.
But yeah, waves as high as 30 feet struck the eastern coast of India and Sri Lanka, some 750 miles away, and traveled more than 1,800 miles to East Africa. The final death toll was at least 225,000, mostly in Indonesia, Thailand, India, and Sri Lanka. Most of the
Oh, so
areas,
this wave traveled 1,800. How many miles did it travel, Jay? 1,800 miles. They said this wave
mhm,
traveled.
more than 18, more than, yeah, 1,800 miles.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mhm.
Okay.
So, I'm not going to even try to do the math right now on how fast that is. That has to be traveling, water moving at that rate of speed to cover that much land and kill that many people almost at once. Um, yeah, that's definitely natural. That is Mother Nature. That is God's wrath. That Yep, absolutely.
Uh,
Excuse
oh,
my sarcasm. Yeah,
oh, oh. That is intelligence insulting. That is.
right. But yeah, man. I mean, levees burst sometimes during the most horrible storms in history. It's just coincidental that poor neighborhoods where poor, impoverished, and indigenous people are still living are wiped out, and the easier cleanup gentrification than to prevent them from dying and losing their homes. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. So yeah, shout out Brad Pitt. Good job, man. So I'm
Mm,
just saying, like,
I've,
not
I've seen that pattern a lot. I've seen a lot of the neighborhoods that are impoverished
mm,
are filled with disenfranchised people.
mm-hmm.
Um,
And then they're dislocated. What's it? Yeah,
force migrated, or
yeah, they're forced migrated or dislodged by some natural seeming event, usually that insurance can't cover because it's an act of God. once again, that owns a trust and has control of land that did not get purchased, but rather was confiscated through the signing of treaties and other agreements that were deceitful in nature.
Wait a minute. In order to take land, don't you have to modify it? But when you're taking land
To
by
patent,
to patent, yes, yes.
yeah. If you
You have
want
to,
to actually own it, there has to be a land patent because anybody could possess a deed and produce a deed. But correct. But here's the thing: who runs the patent office? And who works for the government ordinance department trust, land bank, title, blase, blah, animal and land husbandry. I mean, freedman's bank given over to foreigners right in front of you a few years ago, and y'all still voted for the lady that did it and still think that that's better than the food stamp and benefit cutting administration that's currently there, which, I feel for that. And it does have an effect on people I love directly. Uh, but yeah, man, like Dick Gregory
I
tried to
mean,
tell.
that would be. But I would like to say
What did Dick Gregory try to tell us, bro? The choice of two, the option of choice of two different evils, right, is still evil. Choosing between the lesser of two evils is still choosing
evil.
evil.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All right. So why are we fighting with each other over like stuff that we weren't supposed to participate in, like voting?
Because they've made instant gratification lazy, broken family that is unable to support itself. So now, when it thinks that it has to work or man up and do its own paperwork or supply its own food or create its own legacy, then it doesn't even think in those terms anymore because it's been programmed to think that it has to go to God, to Hollywood, or to school in order to accomplish independence.
Yeah. So, which goes into dun, 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 divide and conquer, mind control, and the taking possession of the incarnated estates.
Yeah, yeah, yep,
And the angels, which kept not their first estate. Yeah, I went there.
yep, yep.
Jude, the book of Jude. Why is there only 20 some verses and why is the rest of the book omitted? I'll let you do your own homework on that. It'll be
What's the land of the gods
nice little
called?
deep dive.
What's
The
the
what?
land of the gods called? Or the valley of the gods? What are they? The
The
city of
val-
the gods? What's
oh, okay. Are you talking about Shambhala? Or are
the
you talking
city?
about
Colorado, Nevada,
Garden of the Gods. Garden of the
Garden of
Gods.
the Gods,
Yeah,
Garden of the,
that's yeah.
and
Colorado Springs.
a lot of that stuff is under government.
What you mean it's right near a military base.
Oh, oh, hot dog, hot dog. I didn't even know that, huh?
The cliff dwellings and all of that. They just said, "Oh, this sounds like a good place to build arms and machines and things that, you know, teach and protect and
So we
utilize
kept
warfare."
not our first estate. No, that's not what it said. It said the angels.
hmm
The angels kept not their first estate.
Remember that video I sent to you? He deals with like who's the angels, right? There's one particular child in the Bible mentioned that while his mother was waiting for them all to die because they got kicked out of a certain man's house, that was told to take her on as a as a wife and the mother to his child. And when she bore his first child, then jealousy rose up in his regular wife, his original wife rather, that told him to marry her. And then when one child got 14 years old and another baby was born, she said, "You gotta go."
Kanye. Shout out to Kanye.
That was random. Nah. But yeah, the family of angels kind of came through a certain person that a certain religion is attributed to that's supposed to be associated with the same patriarch, right? But one of those children was told that they were of the promise by one God, while an obviously different God that was related to that other God made a whole different covenant with another one, which basically made his people descendants of angels, or what we would call gods with a lowercase g, that came from the sky, right? It's interesting. I ain't gonna say too much, but
I heard some Jay-Z lyrics that said he was on the boat with some blue bloods sipping $2,000 champagne. Anyway, what you was
I mean, both of them come from France bloodlines, French bourgeoisie. You know that. You know the House of Brown, and you know the Fleur de Lis symbol that's on
what?
that TRY Ulysses.
Yeah, how
Well,
about that?
House of Brown.
How
They
about that?
all go back to the they all go back to the Indo-Aryan lines, brother.
Uh,
See,
oh,
people say they want to deal with what are they saying, Phoenician. It goes way back, way further than that, way further back than that. I mean, most of these languages started out of Sanskrit. You have Urdu, Ugaritic, and you have all these Amharic, Aramaic, Neo-Amharic, Neo-Aramaic. I mean, but the earlier light languages is where they come out of into liturgical and kabbalistical, and then it is arguable that the kabbalistical is the language of witches, demons
now,
that are trying to
in
bring the liturgicals into their world, and one argues that their world is living and the other is dead.
in relation to that particular thought process, uh, previous to there being a spoken language, they said that there were universal languages spoken, and they give mathematics and they give different sound
Music,
music.
which
They
is why music was taboo and banned in a lot of places when it was first introduced, period. Not just these churches. And in the Bible, they went as far as to condemn the maker of music, the originator of music, as the evil one. Why would you do that?
So if we were talking about being put into a program versus being your own sovereign self, then language would be the very first thing that you had to attack at way back at Babel. You know what I mean? Man, way back at oneness consciousness, way back at a higher energy level on the planet. You know what I'm saying? The first thing that you would have had to have done was attack the language or split up the language. Your mic drop. Your mic drop.
What if Babel was the first direct energy weapon?
Now.
I mean, I'm just saying. Or it was like the precursor to a weapon of sorts, but they decided to build it nonetheless to reach their goal, which was to overthrow what? The one that they considered a tyrannical god. I mean, that story can go so many ways. And then as you go into it, you're dealing with the descendants of the sons of the three Cains, not just the one. Jabal, Jubal, and Tubal. Jabal, Jubal, and Tubal. The ones that struck,
The
Hiram Abiff.
square, the compass, and the malice or the hammer. You know what I mean? Those were the weapons that were used.
Right. That
Have
they
you ever seen
also were
three-headed dog?
three pillars,
Three-headed dog.
three pillars.
Hmm.
Wait a minute, wait a minute. How many pillars are there in Islam? Five. Oh, okay. Hmm. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels and have not charity, I am as a sounding brass or a tinkling cymbal. I mean, interesting word choices. This is pure religion and not defiled that we care for the widow and the orphan. My sons.
Wait. Yeah,
But
yeah,
they were
yeah,
the builders of the tower, remember? Because it said that they were brick and block masons,
yeah,
and
yeah,
their language had to be confused in order for the project to cease. But
yeah.
somehow it caused them to scatter, and they built that system everywhere they scattered to. Isn't that interesting? Isn't
It's
that?
forced migrations. Forced migration.
Was it? Or was it planned and strategic and perfectly timed?
Huh.
Kind of like the invasion of the Americas, and invasions of Africa, or Al Kibulan, as some people like to refer to it, or Atayopai, Ethiopia, Afar, Ruka, all the indigenous Asia, Asia Minor, Asia Major, Southeast Asia, Eurasia, Europa, Australia. I mean, perfectly timed. They washed up upon the shores in 1555. Okay. You keep telling that bedtime story to your kids, and I'm just going to keep digging and seeing where it wasn't an accident, it wasn't coincidence, and it wasn't discovery or genius. It was somebody saying, hey, man, if you let us do this, that, and the third where we already was, and just let us maintain, we take you and show these other people are where they're at. They got way better stuff. Way better stuff, bro. They got energy harvesting systems, bro. They got electric buildings, bro. What's electric? You'll see when you get there. I'm watch. I'm gonna show you. I'm gonna show you. Lightning
You know,
strikes and
you
they
know,
don't need
you know,
nothing for like months to re-up the power.
you know that universal language is energy. So if we were speaking one language, I can think of two time periods. One speculative Tartaria all over the planet to these different Tartarian locations. And then I can think of the capstone on the pyramid. These are two energetic
Bro,
heights that have never been reached at any other time than that would have the potential to create unified fields that would allow for communication I'm doing too much.
Colorado, the land of the colored red rocks. A man came there from Europe named Nikola Tesla. He lit up a whole city without wires.
I think we have given them enough for today. I think that yeah, that's
Find find your genealogy as best as you can. Start looking. Not ancestry, DNA, genealogy, records, as far as you can take them. If they're not in the town hall, check the churches. If they're not the church in the churches, the old churches, look in the family Bibles.
and to my
Um,
Mormon brothers and sisters, I love you. I love you. I mean, and that's genuine. I love you. I got much love for you. Can you bring me? I love you. I love you.
don't keep all that information to yourselves, guys.
What would Jesus do?
The real Jesus, though,
The
not
real,
not the white one. No offense to anyone.
and they wouldn't take offense. A real Mormon would so not be offended by what you just said.
I guess I haven't met too many real Mormons just yet.
We extend. I love y'all, man. I love y'all.
Oh yeah, there's no hate. I mean, you baptized my relatives into your church, so I mean, I'm a member, my ancestors. So you got the records. Help out, help restore the estates. There's a place in the kingdom for you. Do the right thing. Anyways, sorry y'all, we had that moment, but we had to have that moment. So yeah, blacksunshaman.com. Get your healthcare regimented products, your nutrients, your vitamins, your cleanses, your parasite removal and demon possession removal.
I am your local para exorcist, Black Sun Shaman, and I'm gonna kill all them. Oh, excuse me. Okay.
He's gonna torment them before their time, as all son of men should. Nah, but we appreciate you all. Like, share, subscribe. Join our locals on Deeper Dives, Dialogue UNL. I know that's long. Or at jdrews47 on rumble.com. Join rumble.com. Don't listen to the hype. It is a true free speech supporting platform. That is all it is. Of course, you're going to find all kinds of other good things and trash. You ignore the trash and you find all the good things and gravitate and magnetize that. But just want to shout out, Schwebel Room once again. Thank you guys. Peace to the audience. Peace to my family. Happy Sunday. Peace to my co-hosts. Hope you have a grandiose, rare, wonderful day. And hit me up when you get a free time today again later on. But to the audience, say peace, y'all. Thanks for joining us.
Peace.